faster than a speeding typewriter, more powerful than a printing press, able to speak over tall buildings in a single sound. Look, up on the dial!
It's a conservative!
It's a liberal! It's Supermouth! Yes, it's Supermouth, strange visitor from the past with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal talk show hosts. Supermouth, who can change the course of local politics, bend ears with his bare mouth, and who, disguised as Mike Wiley, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan radio show, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Earth Wars, Chapter 7, Return of the Obi-Wan. During the Clinton War in America in the mid-90s, Obi-Wan Coyote led his band of rebel listeners to defeat gun control in the free and independent state of Florida. While serving the people of Boston, Obi-Wan Coyote was snatched from the airwaves by the Clintonian Empire and has been in seclusion until Princess Pelosi and Hussein the Drain took over the Imperial Senate and came to power, while the economy was tanking from the Fannie and Freddie trillion-dollar theft. Hussein the Drain and the Princess Pelosi have captured the Tidy Bowl Man and his ship and are planning to sink the entire economic system of the planet Earth.
This explains why the Democrats always hit you with the bullshit. We're a democracy! We're saving our democracy! We're saving our democracy! Bullshit! It's all bullshit from these people. They're criminals. We're going to go over that today. Matter of fact, we're going to introduce you to this book again, The Diary of Hillary's Right-Wing Conspirator, which I wrote. Goes back to 1993 to 96 when the Clintons took over the White House and began their evil shit, which I battled. This book is for sale for $20. You'll get a signed copy of the book. Okay. And you'll find out all about Vince Foster and who he was and why he committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head with somebody else's gun instead of using his own. And he decided to kill himself in the White House. Mike, how do you know he was killed in the White House? Because I happened to get a phone call one evening from a U.S. Marshal. And the U.S. Marshal was a close friend of a friend of mine who was the person that got me involved in the gun rights in the first place. He called him up and told him what was going on, and he says, call Wiley. He's out of here. So he says, Wendy says I had to call you. His buddy was with the FBI. I don't know if you ever heard of the FBI. This was 1993. And I don't know what was going on at that time. The Clintons were into a lot of shit. And they had to have a lot of stuff happen, which we're going to cover today. Because the Clintons were the beginning of the Iran-China communist function in the Democratic Party, which continues with Obama, Biden, and it's probably going to continue with Kamala. I hate to tell you this, but magic is when you get a stupid bitch with no brains, no nothing, and get her elected to be president. Why? Because she's a black female? That's the reason. You know, there's black females in the Republican Party that are 100 times sharper than Kamala. You want to see a black female president? Elect one of them. So we're going to cover this stuff because basically the election is over. I don't know about you, but I'm just getting the feeling that they're going to pull another one of these steals because they got away with it in 2020. And I did my analysis. I have documented proof. I've done several shows. They're on Rumble upon further review of the election theft that went on in 2020. And what pissed me off was that nobody got involved in anything. And then the January 6th thing came about, and January 6th was basically the closing action. Okay, that was the closing action to make sure that the Republicans didn't retain the White House by having Nancy Pelosi pull her criminal shit. Okay? There's two things to understand about the Democrats. The Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, and certainly Kamala's, and Pelosi all served in the country and in the government from the 1990s to now. And the nation has gone into the toilet. The nation has gone into the toilet, but they're wealthy. They're gazillionaires. They're billionaires. But they can't allow Trump to come back in because Trump's a billionaire, and they only want to put people in power who have no money but will become wealthy and rich by stealing and selling out the country as they have. So we're moving into that mode now. We're not going to continue following the election. We already know what's going to happen. It's obvious, okay? How many people were surprised that they tried to assassinate Trump? Raise your hands. You knew that was going to happen. You knew they were going to try to kill Trump. They had to. Nothing else was working. They had all these phony bullshit lawsuits that they were going up against them on. I mean, complete bullshit. The last show we did was the 34 fake accounts. 34 journal entries, and they're saying, they're felonies. That's bullshit. How can they get away with that stuff? Oh, they're in New York. They're in that blue zone. See New York? Hey, Mike, New York looks like it's a red state. It actually is a red state, but there's little sections of blue, and one part of that section is called New York City. You see Long Island's all red? Long Island should secede from New York, and the northern part of New York should secede from New York. Actually, what you're doing is you're telling New York City, you're out of New York, and everybody else can stay where they are. But that's what has to be done. This is something we're going to be covering. We already started a while ago. We've already been working on this, okay, because there's going to have to be a two-state solution. You know, just like in Palestine, everybody's talking about, yeah, we're trying to get Israel into a two-state solution. And the terrorists, the Hamas terrorists, especially the ones in Congress, in the Democratic Party, go, no, we don't. River to the sea, get rid of Israel. No two-state solution. So one side is trying to get Israel to accept the two-state solution while they know that the terrorists won't accept the two-state solution. You got to have war until one side completely wins. You have to have war until one side completely exists and wins. So after the Confederates were losing the war in 1865, they pulled their military off and they said, okay, we've had enough. But we're going to still kill your president so that then the Democrat vice president can become in power and do all the things we wanted to do. Because assassination is a great election program or great unelection program. They've only tried it 7 times, and they've only used fake impeachments against Nixon and Trump. And those 2 Trump impeachments, oh, there's video. I have video. I've done shows on it where the attorneys for Trump point out the fact that they caught the Democrats actually changing evidence and making it to go to their story even though it was false. Now that's a crime. That's a crime, but Democrats have a get the hell out of the country pass. Okay? And so that's why they never go to jail. That's why they had to win 2020. They had all this stuff planned to destroy the United States, bring in millions of illegals. They had this whole plan. They had to kill off 1 million Americans, elderly Americans, so that $250 billion of Social Security would be available for them to use to supplant the black population that was no longer voting Democrat and put in the illegals. All of that's been planned out. They've done a really good job of screwing us over, and that shit's going to end. And we got this notification today. Muriel Bowser, the dog of D.C., she's saying, if Kamala wins, we'll be able to turn D.C. into a state, which, of course, is illegal. The District of Columbia cannot be a state. But remember, the Constitution doesn't exist in a democracy. The Constitution exists in a republic. That's why the Democrats never follow the laws. They always violate the Constitution. They don't give a shit about it. What do you think January 6th was? January 6th was a whore program where the nation got screwed. But it's very important that you understand that the criminal activity of the Democratic Party has never been attended to by the federal government. And it has to. Because if we're going to have a country, and we're going to be a constitutional republic, then we must have a constitution of laws that we follow and enforce. Now, we do have these things called states, and states have power. States have governors, states have attorney generals, and they don't have to sit around and go, oh, I don't know what to do. They can go ahead and start suing New York. They can do whatever the hell they want. They have power. They're just not using the power because Republicans are kind of chicken shit, if you know what I mean. They're kind of afraid of stuff. Right now, there's only one attorney general from the state of Missouri going after the criminal activity in the Justice Department in New York City. Okay, those bunch of criminals. So what we're going to do today is we're going to cover what's gone on through the Clinton era. Because then there's Obama, and then there's now Biden, and who knows what's going to happen with Kamala. But so much occurred while the Clintons were in power. And a lot of what occurred, they were not really credited with. But we're going to credit them today with it. Because I'm going to present to you the facts of the case. Okay, there was an awful lot going on. The Clintons are the number one government presidential regime to kill off more Americans than any other. Okay, now there's a different scenario to that with regard to the pandemic, because Obama bought the pandemic in 2015, brought it over here, and killed off 1 million Americans. So he really controls the number one spot for the biggest murderer of Americans living in, while sitting in the White House. The only problem is Obama's not a citizen. I'm sorry, he's not a citizen. So everything he did wasn't treason. Okay, but he was a foreign agent of the country of China. We all know that. Okay, I wrote this book because I got exposed to so much. Especially when I got the phone call from a U.S. Marshal telling me, hey, I just found out from a buddy of mine, he's in the FBI in Washington, D.C., and he was assigned to the White House in the Foster killing. And I said, Foster killing? He says, yeah, Foster was offed in the White House. I said, what? Foster was offed in the White House. He was killed in the White House. I said, how do you know? Because he's never signed out. They carried his body out and they brought it down to Fort Marcy Park. Now, who did that? Well, a couple of Hillary operatives. Well, it wasn't Bill Clinton because for some reason, Mr. Foster was killed when Bill Clinton was nowhere to be found. Bill Clinton was in the middle of doing a televised interview with, what's his name on CNN. He's since passed away, but it'll come to me. He's doing a show with him. And while this is going on, Foster gets killed. But Foster, they say Foster killed himself. The only problem was usually if you're going to kill yourself, you shoot yourself with your own gun. Why would you use a gun that's got the serial number filed off? And why would you shoot yourself and kill yourself in the back of the head unless you're in Arkansas, which is Arkansas? So my belief, now this is just my opinion, this is my belief, I believe Hillary shot him. Because they were supposed to be kind of like lovers and they were having some issues and it was getting really hot and bothered. And the Clintons were involved in so much shit, as you're going to see. They had to overlap stuff to get your mind off of that crime. Oh, look at this crime. No, now look at this crime. No, now look at this crime. Now look at this crime. Okay, and you see there's certain names of people that were involved in 3 levels of the crimes going on. Okay, it was pretty bad having the Clintons in power. It really was. They're wealthy because what they did was when they were pulling off scams, they had countries donate money to their international global organization where the money could stay out of the country, they wouldn't have to claim it, and all that other shit. So there's another aspect to what I'm about to say that nobody else has talked about, but I'm going to talk about it because it's very clear. Okay, in 1972, there was a guy named Richard Nixon, and he was a very popular president, and he was running for re-election, and he was in the process of committing a major crime. And the major crime that Republican presidents commit is winning re-election in a landslide. That's not allowed. Now, in May of 1972, Richard Nixon was winning in the polls by 19%. So like today, you look on TV and you see they show Kamala ahead by 1, Trump ahead by 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, it's very close. Nixon was ahead by 19%. It was going to be a landslide. Everybody knew it was going to be a landslide. But the Democrats can't afford to have a landslide because a landslide means that that Republican president got a lot of black vote. And that the Democrats can't have. The Democrats can't have their own slaves. Yes, they've enslaved blacks for years. And a lot of people don't realize this. But, you know, after the Civil War, blacks joined the Republican Party. And they became congressmen and senators. And blacks were involved in the Republican Party. They weren't involved with the Democrat Party because the Democrat Party was filled with people like Biden and all these other lunatics, guys walking around in white shirts and in hoods and stuff like that. Okay, and they were killing black people every election. It was an election massacre. I've already covered these shows. I'm going to put them together. You'll see that. Or you can go up on Rumble and go through looking at it upon further review and start seeing all the stuff that I've already covered. But we need to move to the next level. The next level is the secession, which I've already covered to a certain extent, but I haven't gone through it completely because I was kind of hoping that there may be some things I don't have to adjust. For instance, we may not have to move Chicago out of Illinois because if they get enough black vote, Donald Trump wins Illinois. Illinois is a red state. And they use gerrymandering in Illinois to get more Democrats. And you'll see there's this one looks like a river going through Illinois. And what it is, it's a district for Democrats. And they have to cross over 4 districts to create it. And it's this thin. It's just like they used to do in Florida to make sure that there was a black congresswoman elected named Corrine Brown. And they did the same thing. They made a black district out of Jacksonville and then all the way down 95 Route 4 into Orlando to cover the black neighborhood. And that was a district. That's gerrymandering. That's because white people will not vote for black people. White people never vote for black people unless you want to consider Barack Obama, because white people did vote for him and he was black. But you also have an interesting thing is you've got 2 black congressmen and Republicans, and they come from majority white districts in Texas. One in Texas and one in Florida. Byron Donalds in Florida and Wesley Hunt in Texas. Okay, these guys are awesome. They're absolutely awesome, and they're very close to Trump. Trump's got them in the circle because they're sharp, and he's going to put them to work. Right now, they're still both in the Congress. But I believe Byron Donalds will be part of Trump's cabinet because he's got a very strong banking background And we need a strong financial guy to rebuild the United States and industry. So that's what you'll see happen. So here we are. And the first thing we're going to look at is what were the Clintons doing? Now, one thing I mentioned before, there evidently is a tie-in between the Democrats, their anti-Semitism, their alliance with Iranian Islamic terrorists in China, while the Republicans are aligned with America and Israel. And so what happens is you have these things going on around the world where there are people that says, hey, we need to get rid of the Jews. We need to get rid of some of these Jews. We got too many Jews. They're getting too powerful. That's why I carry this. So can you imagine if all the Jews had these when the Nazis came for them? Yeah, that's why the Democrats don't want us having guns. Not just because Marxists, communists, Nazis, and fascists have a history of wiping out people once they take their guns. That's why they're all, even Kamala's wants a buyback program, forced buyback. The government will pay you $500 for your gun, okay? And then next week they'll take you and throw you in prison and you won't be able to defend yourself. We're that close. We're so close to going off the cliff with Kamala. That's a good saying. Go off the cliff with Kamala. But we're not doing that. We're going right past the election. I'm going with the fact that they've done everything possible to try to get rid of Trump. The criminal judge in New York, Marchand, whose daughter is making millions of dollars working for Kamala, what a coincidence, he's going to sentence Trump to jail on a totally false 34-count charge of journal entry accounting. It is that ridiculous. But remember, we have a big problem in this country. By the way, the other part of this deal is the media gets the hell out. NBC, ABC, CBS, get out. Move to Seattle, move to California, get out. Get out and do not broadcast into the American zones. We'll have our own media presenting the truth. No more of this garbage Nazi shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to say the word shit, but it just happened to come out naturally. So, the Democrats, starting with the Clintons, really get deep into shit. All right? And we're going to cover that today because you need to know. Because I don't think you do know. You may have heard stuff, but you haven't heard from anybody that was actually involved in the Clintons, with the Clintons, got removed from radio because the Clintons had them offer him an illegal bribe to get the hell out of town, Clintons. So, let me just give you some of the crimes. Okay, 1993, there was Waco. Now, Waco was an attack on these 110 Americans in Waco, Texas, that were Christians. And their crime was wanting to be left alone by the federal government, run by Democrats. They had all their own weapons, which is illegal if you're not a communist. And the problem was that, have you ever heard of an organization known as the FBI? Okay, and the FBI stands for frigged. Frigged up the Bureau investigation. The FBI has been involved in every single terrorist organization attack in this country in the last 30 years. Yes, they have. It's documented proof. They had people on the inside, and they still blew up the buildings. They still blew up the World Trade Center. They still killed all these people. And back then, we used to call it Hillary's FBI. We didn't realize that the whole Democratic Party had the FBI. So first, we're going to go with Waco. I'm going to play a little video for you that I'll pop in after I'm done doing this show. I'll segment it in so you'll see it. about Waco and what happened with Waco. Now, before we get to Waco, we have to go to 1990. And in 1990, there was this Jewish guy named Rabbi Kahana. And I'm just going to read this to you. In November 1990, Kahana gave a speech to an audience of mostly Orthodox Jews from Brooklyn, where he warned American Jews to emigrate to Israel before it was too late. As a crowd gathered around Kahana in the second-floor lecture hall in Midtown Manhattan's New York Marriott East Side, Kahana was assassinated by El Sayed Nassar, an Egyptian-born U.S. citizen. He was initially charged and then acquitted of murder. Isn't that amazing? He must be a Democrat. Nassar was later convicted of the murder in the U.S. District Court for his involvement in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So the terrorists, now here's the deal, just to get to the chase. Osama bin Laden was planning attacks on Jews in New York. A lot of Jews are in New York, okay, and they were planning on blowing up buildings run and owned by Jews, like the World Trade Center buildings. Yeah, and building number 7. And the funny part is, the people who run and control building number 7 are the people that work with Miss Gorelick. Miss Gorelick, yes, she was involved in 3 things. One of them was called the Gorelick Wall. And in 2003 or 2004, after the bombing of the World Trade Center by planes as missiles, they looked into this wall she had created, which prevented the government from communicating terrorism. And then World Trade Center blew up. So she kind of helped them blow up the World Trade Center. And she was Jewish. And she got about $20 million out of Fannie Mae before it went down the toilet. Okay, because you had, as I have here, level 1 Islamic attacks. Level 2 were bank robberies committed by the Clintons. Level 3, domestic terrorism committed by the Clintons. Level 4, global terrorism committed by Clinton and Obama buddies, Iran, Afghanistan, and the works. Our nation has been under attack by these people all day long. Is there any wonder why they've controlled the White House except for 4 years? Now, I know George Bush was a Republican, but I believe that he was tied into the gang because they knew that the killing of Rabbi Meir Kahana, the FBI had gotten 6 boxes out of his office, and they were in Arabic. For some reason, the FBI didn't want to read them or find out what they were, or maybe they did, but they didn't want anybody to know. Because what it did was it exposed Osama bin Laden's plans to attack the Jews in New York, and the World Trade Centers were on the target list. The attack on New York happened to be done by Islamic terrorists who wanted to kill Jews. Now, I don't know. I sure know Hillary Clinton loves Jews, because she sure loved me so much that she came down to campaign against me by visiting the Jewish groups and going, he's an anti-Semitic Jew, he changed his name to hide his Jewish heritage. Which, of course, was a lie, but that's normal for Hillary Clinton. That's right, Hillary. Kiss my ass. Meir Kahana is assassinated. Now, the FBI is looking into things. And there's this great document. It's First Blood, Meir Kahana's Murder, Al-Qaeda's First U.S. Attack. It's written by Peter Lance of Tablet Magazine, and he covers the whole ball of wax. And he covers the fact that there was a joint terrorism task force trying to prevent the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, but for some reason they didn't. And you know what's amazing? They were keeping track of this guy who was taking target practice regularly. They were Arabs. And the FBI and the New York police were watching these guys all the time, and then they still let them blow up the World Trade Center. It's just like this guy. He was at this shooting range all the time with the FBI, and they let him shoot Trump. Same modus operandi, day in and day out. When you have the media on your side, and they're not going to report the truth, you can get away with everything. You can get away with everything. So now what happens is the World Trade Center is attacked, the first bombing in 1993. Okay, and the guys that originally did it were cut loose by the feds in 94 and presumably remained at large for a while. Yeah, they let these guys go. What's going on? Why would the FBI be helping terrorists? And helping the Clinton administration. So what happened in 1993? Well, the World Trade Center got attacked, didn't get blown up, but 10 people were killed. That occurred on February 26, 1993. Interesting. And what happened 2 days later? The FBI and the ATF, the asshole terrorist force, someday people can figure out why they exist, and it's not to collect taxes for tobacco and alcohol. They attack Waco. 2 days after this thing. They go ahead and attack Waco, and you'll see the video of it. And that lasts for about 2-3 months, and then Hillary decides to wipe them out on April 19th, 1995, because she's 1993, because she's a lunatic. Hillary's a lunatic. She's real. So, and then of course she picked April 19th, 1995 to blow up the Oklahoma City bombing, let that occur to use it as a campaign program to get her husband, who is at Biden levels. You gotta remember, most Democrats suck in government because all they do is steal money from the country. They become wealthy and we become poor. Okay, just like Obama's buddy who was on TV the other day trying to tell all of us that Trump was making fun of them because they were smart and they were black, and that's bullshit. Okay, and here she is telling people how to get jobs or how they would be working. She's a gazillionaire. All the Democrats become gazillionaires from stealing money from the federal government and siphoning everything off and selling out the country to Iran and China. Iran and China, Iran and China, Iran and China, Iran and China. All day long, Iran and China. This stuff drives me nuts because I've gone through this before. Okay, so the people in Waco end up getting wiped out on April 19th, 1993. It was a couple of months, and they decided to go ahead and get them. You're going to see the video. They decided to burn these people to death, run them over in tanks and shit. And they go, oh, we don't know how the fire started. I think they set it themselves because they wanted to kill all themselves and their children. How many people want to kill themselves and their children? Then we find out that, those tanks that the FBI brought to go after these people, the shells that they were using were special shells designed to burn people to death and create fire. So the government knew exactly what they were doing to these people. They wiped them out. And at the same time, they wiped out the story of the World Trade Center.
4 agents were dead. 17 were wounded.
After a 51-day siege, federal agents bring it to an end by driving a tank straight into the compound. News networks from all over the world beam their live coverage to millions of households.
At one point, we were watching TV, and that's when the fire started.
We have what appears to be a fire going on right now, raging at the Branch Davidian compound.
Now, then you have 1993, you have Black Hawk Down. But in between them, in between those two dates, now remember, the reason why things happen is to hide other things that happen. Okay? The media can't stop covering something unless they have something else to cover. Okay? Now let's see. July 20th, 1993. Oft in the White House, the Vince Foster Down, Chapter 4. And that comes after April 19th, 1993. I call it the birth of a right-wing conspirator. That's me. That started me up. The attack on Waco. I had a lot of inside information on what the hell was going on there. A lot of inside information. I got more of it when I started running for office, because I happened to come across people that were involved in that thing and knew those people and knew what happened to them and that they were nice people. I'm just going to read this to you. It was a typical talk radio night for me. I was sitting in the newsroom preparing for my 10 p.m. show when a call came in from the production room. Then I was informed that a U.S. Marshal was on the phone. I'd only been on the 100,000 watt station for 2 months, and I had no idea why a U.S. Marshal was calling me. I picked up the phone. The Marshal told me that a close FBI friend of his in Washington had been assigned to investigate the Vince Foster murder. Yes, murder. What he actually said was, "Hey, Mike, I just had to call you and tell you that my buddy in the FBI told me that Vince Foster was off in the White House." I said, what do you mean by off? I'd never heard the term before. Remember, I was not involved in politics. I wasn't involved in politics then. I hadn't even started in politics. This was in 93, the year before I got involved in gun rights and stuff. He said Vince Foster never signed out of the White House. The Marshal said, "Mike, no one leaves the White House without signing Vince." Now, hold on a second. Just occurred to me. I've written this in a book. The book's been published. And I haven't been sued for defamation or any of that other shit. Therefore, this must be truthful. This is a crucial point. The White House is the world's most secure private residence with a state-of-the-art entry control system and video surveillance system. There is no record, no video footage, no logbook entries showing Vince Foster left the White House under his own power on July 20th, 1993. But several hours after he was last seen in the side of the White House, he was found dead in Fort Marcy Park, just outside Washington, D.C. How did he get there? I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. It's a short chapter. These are short chapters. This is an informational book of stuff the media doesn't want you to know. The question is, who did kill Foster? He didn't commit suicide. Okay. Now I can tell you one thing. As you go through it, there's a book called Something About the Clintons, written by Ambrose Evans Pritchard, in which he goes into detail a whole bunch of this stuff. And he explains about the fact that evidently the people who had Vince Foster killed or were covering up for the woman that may have killed Vince Foster, they took him out of the White House and they brought him down to Fort Marcy Park and they left him there and they left his car there. There was only one problem. It wasn't his car. They took the wrong car. And then they didn't find out for like an hour or so later. Somebody came back and said, "Hey, what's Foster's car still doing here?" So they had to go back, bring that car down, and take the other one back. But this guy who was hired by Hillary, he was an idiot. He forgot to take the key from Foster's car and put it in Foster's pocket where it would have been. Because see, Foster supposedly decided he was going to kill himself down at Fort Marcy Park. So he drove down there because he was supposed to be still alive. He walked over to where the cannon was and then blew his brains out. Okay? That's what they wanted you to believe. So what happened was when they found Foster's body, there was no key. And that caused a big issue. So then all of a sudden the key showed up on Foster's body after some guy who was Hillary's bagman showed up and evidently put the key in his pants. So that was Waco. So they killed about 110 Americans and children. Bill and Hillary Clinton, Democrats. Then we had Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down occurred after Vince Foster. Okay, as my book takes it in order. And the reason my book takes it in order is because it was one thing right after another. One thing right after another with the Clintons. Okay, so here I'm just going to go through these. So you had off to the White House July 20th, October 4th, 1993, Al-Qaeda strikes again, Black Hawk Down. Chapter 6, February 12th, Return of the Gun Owners. February 14th, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This is the gun control issue. And then this is when I end up running for office, because people came to me and said they wanted me to run for U.S. Senate. Okay, and then this basically takes me into the campaign, and then I go into Boston, and then April 19th, 1995 is the attack on America, the Oklahoma City bombing. And then I get taken off the air because I had threatened Hillary that I would run against her in the U.S. Senate race in Massachusetts. And she didn't want that, so she had me removed from the radio forever. And I ended up joining the Pat Buchanan campaign. And that's where the book ends. The book goes from 1993 to 1996. U.S. Senate, being on radio, U.S. Senate race, and then the presidential race with Pat Buchanan. It's an interesting book. It's a quick read, but it's got information nobody else is telling you about. So this is in summary. So there's Waco in 1993, and then there's the Vince Foster suicide murder. And then in 1993, there's Black Hawk Down. And so what happened was things were quiet in Somalia. You know, and it's funny because that's where we have this person sitting in the Congress of the United States. She's a pirate. Somali pirate. She's from Mogadishu. Somehow she got the United States, and somehow the Democrats elected her into the Congress. She is a piece of garbage. And unfortunately, she's part of the terrorist wing of the Democratic Party. And we've had to put up with that. And see, we've put up with enough of these people. That's the thing. Okay? How many times in your life do you still want to live under the thumb of Democrats? It's unnecessary to do so. Let them stay in their sections. Get the hell out of Washington, D.C. Start your own government in San Francisco. Okay? Have your own Congress. Screw your citizens, but stop screwing with us. Because we're getting to a point where, hey, remember, because we're going to have enough. We're getting there. We're getting there. And I think from what I feel of the people, they've had it. I know I've had it. And I'm not into putting up with shit. I'm nobody's slave. I'm one of them American whack jobs from Boston who remembers the birthplace of this country and the revolution. And I can't stand this shit, what they're doing. So now you have Black Hawk Down and nothing's going on. So Billy the Clinton decides, hey, you know, let's take some troops out. We can reduce the amount of troops. We don't need them anymore. Okay, I'm not a military genius. I'm the guy that when I was governor of Arkansas, I was having the government fly in tons of cocaine in these big planes, and they used me to Arkansas to land that shit. We don't really know what his background is, but my understanding is that he was CIA, and that's why they sent him to Oxford and to Meldon and shit like that. So then we had Black Hawk Down because now that we had less forces, the Somalis decided to attack us, which is typical. If the military says we need 1,000 men, Democrats will go, well, send 10. Okay, remember? Remember Hillary Clinton and Benghazi in 2012? That was a good one, wasn't it, Hillary? The Clintons have more deaths on their hands. And everyone just forgets. It's like, oh, never mind. Why do you bring that up, Mike? Just so they murdered some people? Come on, Democrats always kill people. Just look at Martha's Vineyard on July. There's 3 of them so far to date. I already did a show on that. 1994. Bill Clinton sends nuclear materials to North Korea. What? Bill Clinton sent nukes to North Korea? Yeah, how else did you think they got a nuclear program? They couldn't get it from the Chinese. The Chinese didn't have it. The Chinese got it from the Koreans. 1995, Oklahoma City. That was the re-election campaign of Bill Clinton. Here's what happens at Oklahoma City. There's this organization called the ATF, and they have just finished wiping out 100 and some odd 10 people in Waco, and they're ready to do some more damage and shit. So they have this woman that infiltrates this group of neo-Nazis in Ponca City, or Elohim City in Oklahoma, and these guys are planning on doing some kind of blowing up of a building or something. Now, at what point it was their idea to blow up the building, or when it was Hillary Clinton's idea to blow up the building, we don't know when that transition took place. What we do know is that the woman who was infiltrated the group, there were actually 2 of them. There was this one woman who was working for the ATF, and she exposed everything that was going to happen. Then they found out there was a woman that worked for the FBI, and she was busy screwing the leader, okay? And the funny part is, the 2 guys that were in charge of the whole thing, they never went to jail. They never went to court. For some reason, the government didn't find them involved at all in what they were in charge of. But they found this other guy that had been led around so everybody could see him, and they go, yeah, it's the guy we're going to blame the blow up on. Yeah, we're going to put him asleep with some drugs, and we're going to leave him in this yellow car that was parked in front of the building for a couple of days, and then it was out on the street on the highway going from Dallas to Oklahoma City, and they'll find him, and then we'll kill him, and we'll blame everything on him, even though he was never seen pulling out of the Ryder truck that blew up, killing 168 Americans. A lot of children were killed. But Hillary Clinton didn't care because it helped get Bill Clinton elected. Bill was a garbage Democrat president like all the others. Okay, he didn't waste as much money as other Democrats do because I don't think the Clintons understood how to steal from the American government like Obama and Biden. Biden was a champion in that. I don't know if Kamala's learned or if she's got some other deal. She just may be on a direct payment program from China or Iran to that effect. We'll find out when the day comes when they all go to the electric chair city. Oklahoma City blows up. Bill Clinton's at 38% in the polls. And Bill goes to Oklahoma City, and he's going to preside over this nationally televised funeral for all these poor people killed by Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, you have to blame them for the killing because the ATF knew all about it. The ATF informed, what's her name, the lesbian attorney general, and I don't know if she forgot or if she told Hillary, and Hillary said, no, don't do nothing. Let them blow it up. We could use it because we need to come up with something because Bill's not getting reelected, and that means I'm not going to be in the White House as commander of terror for another 4 years. He gives this speech, and everybody goes, oh, he's so wonderful. And he goes from 38% in the polls to 51 in like 2 days. Bam! And he wins re-election. Okay. You notice all the Democrats always win re-election, except for Jimmy Carter. Clinton won it. Obama won it. And now we're going to probably watch Biden win it, even though he's not even running, because they'll end up sticking Kamala in there. The only person who didn't win re-election was Trump. And Trump was the best president. We had the best economy out of him. it's just so, it's so sickening. I wish I could just light a fire under your ass by informing you of all the stuff. Now, let me just take a quick look at the time.
29 years ago today, the Oklahoma City bombing rocked the nation when a truck exploded in downtown, killing 168 people, including 19 children, and injuring hundreds more. This is some of the aftermath. A remembrance ceremony will begin at 9:30 this morning in Oklahoma City. It was the deadliest day of a terrorist attack in U.S. history until September 11th. Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols were convicted of the attack. McVeigh was executed for his role in 2001. The Oklahoma City National Memorial has 168 stone and glass chairs placed in rows, one for each victim.
You're going over, man. I'm trying to keep these to an hour. So, after the Fannie Mae, so then you got Oklahoma City. Then you got the Fannie Mae scandal, okay? And the Fannie Mae scandal was started by Nancy Pelosi in 1992. She was in Congress, and they created this banking program to supposedly protect the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac from, getting raped. But that couldn't happen because the Clintons wanted to rape them. They put a Jew and a black guy and a Jewish woman. Remember, when Democrats commit crimes, they always use a black and a Jew, all the time. Because then when you go after them, you're a racist and an anti-Semite. It's just the modus operandi of scrounge Democrats. So what happens is Fannie Mae in 94 to 97 is supposed to be this OFHEO. It's Office of, I forget what HEO stood for, but it was a protection agency to make sure Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac didn't go belly up. And they did. And the funny part was the OFHEO disappeared. It was removed in 2007 by the person who created it, Nancy Pelosi, as part of the TARP program. They made it go away because they didn't want the media to follow the crime. Remember, these are all crimes. They're all crimes. They all have the same thing. They have a Democrat involved in the White House. They have Democrats stealing money from the American people through the use of government organizations. Banks, Fannie Mae, blowing up people in cities. Okay? That's what they do. They're all opportunities for them to steal money. Okay? So we're running out of time. So now you've got, 1999, after the Fannie Mae scandal, you have the missile tech to China. Okay? Bill Clinton decides to send gyro technology to China so they can send their missiles up and bomb our heads off. Yeah, that's treason. That's treason. Now, the 2001, the Twin Towers, missiles as planes as missiles. That plan was discovered back in 1993. The federal government knew that the Islamic terrorists were going to attack the Twin Towers with airplanes. They knew it was going to happen. They knew. The FBI knew. Everybody knew. I bet even the Republican president, George Bush, knew. Okay, that's why he kind of had that face that he made. Like maybe he was supposed to be surprised, but he kind of wasn't surprised. Okay, but what it was the excuse to go into Iraq and Afghanistan and kill off as many American soldiers as you can, turn them all into invalids, blow up their arms and legs, and ruin the lives of 50,000 Americans who still are in the same condition they were 10, 12, 15 years ago. But the Bidens and the Kamalas and the Obamas and the Clintons, they're not in the same condition. They're millionaires. They're rich. All these people should be strapped into electric chairs and toasted on national television. That day may come. Okay, so I'm going to jump to this because I believe that the Twin Towers was due to the Clintons. Even though they weren't in the White House, they were there in 2000 during that election. Then 2001, they were taken out, and interviews Ahmad Salim. Why did it take a revelation by Imad Salim to an investigative reporter almost 20 years after the Shalabi death to connect the dots? Even more disturbing, given what these newly uncovered FBI 302s tell us about the Kahana and Shalabi murders. Why would the Joint Terrorism Task Force keep those confessions hidden from New York police almost after a decade after September 11th, when intelligence sharing between counterterrorism agencies had become a mandate? It's now clear that Bilal al-Qasi was a linchpin connecting the Kahana assassination with the World Trade Center bombing, effectively recasting Kahana's significance, if not in life, then in the manner of his death. In my books, I prove a direct connection between Ramzi Yousef's first Trade Center attack in 1993 and the planes as missiles plot executed on September 11th, which was designed by Yousef in Manila in 1994. Manila in 1994, they put together a plan to blow up the World Trade Center by taking airplanes and turning them into missiles. And in 2001, they did it. Isn't that amazing? How inept is the American government, or how corrupt is the American government? Did they allow this bombing to occur and kill 3,000 Americans so they could have war in Iraq and Afghanistan and then end up turning everything over to Iran and China? And then the planes as missiles plot executed on September 11, which was designed by Yousef in Manila in 1994 and executed by his uncle Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in 2001. What more could other U.S. intelligence agencies like the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Security Agency have learned in the years leading up to September 11th plot? If the full truth behind the rabbi's murder and its place in bin Laden's decades-long plan to attack the United States has been known, and there's a more immediate question: what, if anything, does the New York Police Department intend to do about Bilal al-Qasi with these confessions now public? The Clintons were involved in the World Trade Center bombing. Gorelick was committing a wall. They call it the Gorelick Wall so that the government couldn't follow shit. So when there's 11 Saudis learning how to fly jets in Miami, nobody else in the government could know about it. Our government is corrupt when Democrats are running it. Okay, it's got to stop. It has got to stop. Okay? Yeah, let me just read this quickly to you. Federal grand jury is investigating whether 2 American companies illegally gave China space expertise that significantly advanced Beijing's ballistic missile program. But the officials said the criminal inquiry was dealt a serious blow 2 months ago when President Clinton quietly approved the export of China of similar technology by one of the companies under investigation. Now, the companies under investigation were major donors of Bill Clinton. And they evidently got paid by China for getting the stuff, and then they turned around and gave the money to the Clintons. Okay. Then Hillary was involved with the Chinese when she was running for. She ran for Senate in 2000. Then she was, I guess, when she was running for president in 2008, and then in 2016, the Chinese were attached to her. There's so much. I've already covered these, but I wanted to come out with this because you've got one more night of watching the lunatic shitbums put together phony face shit on TV about what they're going to do and how they're going to save America. They're criminals. They're organized crime criminals, and all they do is steal from the American people every day. Every day. And every day they get away with it. And I'm sick and tired of what they're doing. So I'm beginning my next program, not program of activity to begin to create a 2-state solution. Okay? Not for the Middle East, but for us. Okay? The Democrats want to screw shit up. They can go to Seattle and do it. We're not going to turn Washington, D.C. into a state so they can come up with 2 more Democrat senators. First of all, D.C. can't be a state. Oh, that's right. The Democrats can't read the word Constitution. They ignore it all day long. They need to get electric chaired. That's what's going to happen. Treason is a crime. Treason is a crime. They get away with it all the time. And you just sit and watch it happen. But I'm going to promise you that we're going to try to get some of the media placed into electric chairs as well, because they're just as guilty. They're covering up all this crap that is done all the time. All the time. All the time. Our nation's in big trouble. Because if we lose this election, and I believe we're going to, because I can't see the Democrats allowing Trump to win, because if Trump wins, they go to jail. They know he's going to put them all in jail because they're all crooked. They're all criminal. I've covered things on the show. It was Democrat judges who purposely put all these people in jail on January 6th based on a phony crime, based on a law that had nothing to do with it because it had to do with documentation. The Republican judge didn't put anybody away because he knew that you couldn't use that law. Democrats didn't care. They were using the law, and the appellate judge who was assigned by Biden, she let it all occur, and then she had to take all the people that had gone through the judge and the Republican judge and send them through the Democrats so they could get stripped of their constitutional rights too. We can't put up with it anymore. It's got to stop. I'm sorry, but it's got to stop. We're at that point. You know, either sit back and shut the hell up or get out and start moving. Get together, organize county by county, county by county. Go to your county sheriff and say, hey, we need to get things going. Where are you at with this? Are you supporting the Democrats and all the violations of the law, or are you going to uphold the law? Remember, our country started with counties before there were states. Read about the Suffolk Resolve. Read the Suffolk Resolve and see what the Suffolk County was doing to get things fixed while the British were screwing shit up. Now the Democrats are screwing shit up, and our nation is suffering for it. So get to work. I love you. Bye.